Hello, hello. Today we have another yellow shirt. I don't know why I keep finding myself to wear yellow. But today we are looking at Oden's Eye's Stone and Rock palette. I think this came out at the end of last year. Out of the two, I believe there was two that came out during this collection. Of the two that came out, this one caught my eye a little more because it had greens in it. And this ended up actually part of the Black Friday sale that I ended up getting. I got this during the Black Friday sale, so this one was one of three palettes that I ended up getting from that sale. So this palette retails for $35.90. I think this was on sale at the time for $25.13, and with code LED I was able to get a little bit more off, so I ended up getting this palette for $22.63. So it is a bit on the pricier side. This is a brand from Sweden. It says that this palette has 15 shades of cool and earthy gray-green tones, reflecting the rugged beauty of rocks and minerals. So it has matte, shimmer, and metallic finishes. So this is, I gotta be honest, the concept itself, I was like, girl, you're gonna do a rock palette? A palette with a theme of freaking rocks? Like, are you serious? Okay, well, I think the visuals of the palette itself is very Oden's Eye. This is very much in the Oden's Eye way of doing their artwork, so it fits in theme with everything else. On the top there, you can see it just says Oden's Eye, and then on the back we have the tiniest of all the ingredients in a paperless font, along with the shiny shift of the print. But the ingredients are on the back, at least, I guess. This is, apparently to me, kind of a really boring palette. Like, how are you gonna have a palette and the theme is freaking rocks? Like, I don't know. Like, they kind of made literally a palette about, like, refrigerators, and it kind of feels like the same vibe. But I don't know. People like to collect rocks. My little brother loves to collect rocks. But this is the little cover, and it's just, you know, a slip-on cover. Looks exactly the same, except on the actual palette, what we're going to find is the names of the shades of this palette. I've actually never even looked at the names of these shades, and it has, for a stone and rock palette, it has names like Frenzy, Madness, Passion, Cheer, Exuberance, Gleefulness. You would have thought maybe they would have had the names of stones, like granite or something. I don't know. But we have this pretty woman that kind of looks like a river. We have these rocks. So it's like, okay, so let's open it up inside. So we can see here, we have this mirror right here, and it's in a very interesting shape. It's almost in the shape of like a geode. So that is very interesting. It's very, you know, unique mirror. We have these shapes and the stars and all that, so that's all fun. So we're going to cover that up, and then this is the actual palette. And this is, I always try not to buy palettes like this, because usually I find that once you find a good grungy green, a good grungy green's a good grungy green. I think these kind of mossy greens, foresty greens, darker greens are easier to produce than, say, lighter shades. So I broke this palette up into 4 looks. I did a look right here of this column, and then I did looks right across the rows. So these 4 shades, those 4 shades, these 4 shades. That's pretty much how I broke it up. And I'm honestly quite surprised. I bought 3 palettes from that Oden's Eye Black Friday sale. I got Cat's Breath, I got the Trick or Treat palette, and I got the Stone and Rock palette. Of the 3 palettes, this one's actually my favorite. I feel like I had a lot less issues with this palette than I did with the other palette. I took this on vacation. I took this with me for my Memorial Weekend getaway. I went back to California to do some, I guess, hiking and exploring kind of stuff. And once again, I think that after trying this one in the past too, I think more or less Oden's Eye has their matte formula quite on lockdown. I think their matte formula is very good. I think that the shimmer shades are almost as good as they should be in this. Overall, I think all of the shimmer shades in this palette I was able to apply with a brush, and with a brush it applied okay. I think for shades like this, where they look a little more textured, a bit more gummier, it did apply better with a finger. I didn't mind that too much. But overall, I think this has a really dark green, sexy vibe. Honestly, when I was on this last row, I was kind of thinking to myself, this feels like a really good, like, goth green kind of energy. Like, a sultry, sexy vibe, but with greens. And so let's do some swatches. Let me swatch this white for y'all, because let's see, there are little geodes, stars, rocks on the palette, but I thought this was a solid white. I think this is a solid white. Whites are one of those shades that are kind of hard to make, and I think it's pretty good white. It's not the best white I think I've ever tried, but it is a good white. It's a good white in here. It is a white. That's really nice. I think that's really cool. Let's see. I really like this light green. This light green specifically, I think, if I can get my finger in there, I think was one of my favorite, if not my favorite matte shade in here. I just love how bright it is. It's probably the lightest color in here other than the white. I think it's just so pretty. It's like a yellow green. It's almost like chartreuse on my skin. I think that's very pretty. So I very much liked that. I mean, overall, I don't think I had any issues with the matte, so I don't know if I even want to swatch any more of the mattes. You did not need a lot of product to get what you needed. I think it worked. I think they all worked pretty well. I will swatch some shimmers for y'all. I think I found this one very interesting. This one, out of all of them, is a completely different formula, and you can definitely tell, like, that is a metallic kind of shade. And I think it might be kind of like a duochrome, because it's definitely a different formula, and it feels completely different. It has like a slight shift. I don't remember if it kind of just does a slight shift to a green or a blue, but it does have a slight shift, which I think is really cool. I think it kind of shifts to a blue, but that was fun. I really liked, I'm trying to remember from this past weekend, but I think I really liked this Cheerfulness shade as well. They're very sparkly, a little chunky, but I think overall you could work with the chunkiness and how sparkly they were. It's a little bit of an issue, but not too much. Not enough where I was like, girl, I'm never reaching for this palette again. I think maybe my least favorite shimmer in here might have been this one. I don't remember. Just because, from what I remember, they all more or less worked. And that's just because preference. It's so chunky. It's a little bizarre. So it's kind of weird to work with, and I think you could really see the spaces in between. It's almost like sticking flakes on your eyelids, so you can really see that separation. That was the only thing I didn't really like, the fact that you can really see that separation in there. If I can find a pen. I'll get up real close. You can kind of see like where it separates, and it's there, but it's almost like see-through but not. So I wasn't really a fan of that. I think I'll do just two more, just so you guys can see. This brown was pretty nice, and I'll do Frenzy over here. Frenzy was really pretty as well. It's the lightest shade that we have in there. I think overall I'm quite content with this palette. Ooh, that one's really sparkly. This one's more of just like a topper shimmer kind of deal. I really like that brown, even though it is slightly flaky. It's not too bad. I think from far away these look even better, because then you can't see up close maybe how they may not work as well. Overall, would I recommend this palette? I think of the three that I've reached for so far, I think this palette did perform better, which makes me wonder if newer palettes have better formulas and newer formulas. I don't know. That Cat's Breath palette was definitely not it. That was not my favorite palette. I think this was a lot more fun than I thought it was going to be. And I know I was ragging on it in the beginning because I was like, girl, I'm gonna do a palette about rocks. But it really does have some really nice earthy, grungy shades in here. I don't have a palette with this color story at all. The only thing I could think of is maybe a section in maybe my green palettes where maybe the color story is a little bit more, as we keep saying, the grungy greens, these kind of brown greens, army greens. I think the matte formula is a pretty solid formula. I think the shimmers could use a little bit more work, but in this palette specifically, the shimmers aren't so bad that it's distracting me from doing my makeup and the way I want to do it. So I think out of the three of these, this is my favorite palette. I'm keeping a hang of it. I think for the price, it is still a little pricey for $22.63, but I mean, like I always say, I don't know how much money goes into paying for the artwork and paying for the product itself. I think the shades in here for the mattes are very much worth it. I think you could try your hand for the shimmers if that's what you're interested in, but it's a yes for me. I'm going to keep this palette.